Is the PowerPoint? Yes, okay. So hello everyone, I'm so excited to be with you today. I'm Omnia El-Omrani and I'm currently a member of the first ever Youth Sounding Board of the Director General on the External Partnerships of the EU. I'm also the first ever COP27, which is the climate change conference that is going to take place in my home country in Egypt. And this is the first time that the COP president has an envoy for youth. So I work together as well as on youth engagement for COP that is less than 30 days away. And finally, I also work as a doctor doing my plastic and reconstructive surgery residency, but having a bit of time off. So as young people, we have seen and felt the detrimental impacts of climate change on our families, our communities, as well as our friends. And at the same time, we are the biggest demographic in the world. We are 1.4 billion young people, and at least one of us has experienced one of the high-risk climate hazards, from the floods that we're seeing now in Pakistan to the cyclones that we're seeing in South Africa, small state islands, as well as in Asia Pacific, to the vector-borne diseases we are seeing in Africa, as well as the acute food and water insecurity that we are suffering from. And at the same time, a child that is born now, in the next slide, do I change it here? Huh? On this way? Okay, perfect. So a child born in 2020 compared to a person who was born in 1960 is going to experience 2 to 8 the fold of number of extreme weather events that you are seeing now. So in this graph from Save the Children, you can see that a child born in 2020 is going to experience at least twice the number of heat waves, twice the number of floods, 2.8 the number of drought, as well as heat waves that we are even seeing now in Europe, as well as many other countries. And when it comes to migration, because of the extreme weather events that we are seeing right now, more than 50 million children, adolescents, and youth are being displaced from their countries, migrating across borders. And at the same time, if we think about specific natural disasters such as drought, you can see that nearly 160 million live in areas where there are high risk of drought. And at the same time, 50 million children are now living in areas with high rates of flooding. These numbers are important, and this is the evidence that we need, because as young people, with the inadequate political will that we are seeing and the inadequate climate pledges that we are seeing in the negotiation process, we will continue to suffer the most. And at the same time, we are the biggest demographic, and we are also the most creative, which means that we are taking the streets and using our voices to demand for climate justice and intergenerational equity. And at the same time, we are also using our creative capacity to create local climate solutions. One example I would like to share is from Egypt, where there are young entrepreneurs that are developing locally reliable and affordable clean energy solutions for their vulnerable communities. I also know some of the young leaders in Uganda, for example, that are planting thousands of trees of diverse species. And on the other hand, in Guatemala, there are young farmers who are creating solutions to save water so that farmers can adapt to drought, which is similar to what many other young people are doing in Africa by creating drought-resistant seedlings. And these are all examples of what young people are doing on the ground. But the biggest question is how can we translate local youth transformational solutions to the climate policy making? So this is why I am very lucky to be part of the first ever Youth Sounding Board, because what we need as youth movement is to have a formal participatory mechanism that makes sure that our engagement, our voices, our solutions are being led and are being transmitted to policymakers in a way that is A, meaningful, B, sustainable. We are not just there as an add-on to adult-led solutions. We are not just there speaking in one-off events with no follow-up mechanism. We are natural partners to the policy-making process. And this is why the Youth Sounding Board was established. These are my friends and my members, 25 advocates from diverse disciplines around the world, from diverse specialties. I'm the only person from the health sector, but I've learned so much from each one of them who's an activist in their own community. Together, we met in Brussels, where you can see right now. And before meeting in person, we stayed for 3 to 4 months doing consultations with our youth-led organizations, with the youth groups and the grassroots activists, listening from them what are their capacity building needs and what are their demands for more effective youth-responsive policy making. And we used all their inputs to develop the Meaningful Inclusion of Youth, A Promising Future. This is a report that is based on the voices and the consultations that were led by each of the 25 members of the YSB. And we have included around young people from 50 countries so that we can focus on the areas that matter to them most. I invite you to read this report. It has different thematic areas that we as a group worked on. We have areas related to climate change, peace and security, health, as well as migration. But just to go back to this very important slide, and one that I would love to share, this is from COP25, and this is my delegation. We were one of the young delegates that attended COP, and we wanted to emphasize that the climate crisis is a health crisis. It's not just about the environment, it's about our health, our future, as well as our prosperity. We don't want to look to the upcoming generation, to our children, as well as our grandchildren, and say that we had the opportunity and we failed to take action. And for us to do that, we are not asking to be on the table. We are asking for a reorientation of the decision-making table. And this means that as young people, we are members of our official country delegates that go to, for example, COP, the Global Climate Conference, or we serve as part of a youth council that delivers inputs to our governments, really guiding them into what they need to do. And this brings me to the Youth Action Plan, which was adopted yesterday, and as the Youth Sounding Board, we were also consulted in terms of how to formulate an action plan that the European Commission is developing to learn how to engage with young people in a way that responds to their needs, in a way that it is co-created with young people as an example of a meaningful participatory mechanism. So before I end my intervention, just going on to COP, which is happening in less than 30 days, and I would like to promote a few opportunities because one of the key areas that we want to address at COP is climate migration, which is one of the main impacts that affect children, adolescents, and youth across the world. We have the Conference of Youth, which takes place 3 days before COP. It is organized by 5 Egyptian youth-led organizations, as well as the official youth constituency to the UNFCCC, which is the framework for climate change. And the Yongo is organizing a 3-day event. It's about capacity building, but it's also about the voices of young people, because we are going to develop a global youth statement, which will be presented to the COP presidency so that it is part of the negotiation process. So we have areas related to migration in the Global Youth Statement. So even if you cannot attend in Sharm el-Sheikh, the COI, you can also participate online, share the work of your organization, of your youth groups, of your activism, and integrate it in the Global Youth Statement, which will be discussed throughout the 2 weeks of the Climate Change Conference. And then for the first time, we're also going to have a youth pavilion, which is a space for young people at the Climate Change Conference to invite the policymakers to co-create solutions together and policy asks for the negotiation process. And then finally, on November 10th, we would love to have you either participate online or in person on the Youth and Future Generations Day, which is a day dedicated at the conference itself for young people. So finally, to wrap up, I think that the climate crisis, especially climate migration, is one of the biggest demonstration of intergenerational inequality that we need to address. However, we, as young people, we are natural partners and equal to the climate agenda. So with our creativity, as well as the political will of all the different stakeholders, from governments to private sector to civil society organizations, we can make our generation the last to face the climate crisis. Thank you.